Dragon Age Veilguard is here, and it's terrible. If you float around YouTube for a bit, you'll find no shortage of people having their say on this game, but to be honest, I've largely seen one of two points of view shouted the loudest. Game bad cause woke, or game good, pronoun warrior salty. Well, don't worry, because I'm here to tell you that you're all fucking wrong. Like and subscribe, I guess. Game Good would be strongly argued against by its anemic Steam player count and the 300,000 return requests we've already seen, as well as widespread derision in review scores. We all know review bombing is a thing and that the game has become a bit of a political football as well, but don't worry, we'll be showing a few clips later that will highlight the issues of this game rather nicely. For all intents and purposes, Game Good appears to be a position largely taken by people fighting the political fight rather than the artistic one. And then we have Game Bad Cause Woke. All the controversy surrounding the game's political messaging back and forth does a rather nice job of covering up why the game is actually bad. And if you care about good media, that should be far more important to you. So first we're going to talk about why the politics isn't the problem, demonstrate the real problem, then discuss the cause of the real problem. Is the woke messaging in the game good? No, but not because it's woke. Your stance on the politics is entirely your own. Frankly, I don't care. Let me show you a scene from the game.
Here, vegetables.
Thank you.
So, I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
If this is because I have criticized your dress or your manners...
It isn't!
Under the Cune, the term for one whose gender does not match the one given to them at birth was a cunithlock. Perhaps you are like that.
Why do you have to keep picking at it? Why can't you just be happy for me?
Evatosh, chakra toebra.
So I'm supposed to struggle with who I am? Even if I don't feel like I fit, even if I feel wrong?
No, you misunderstood.
Then say it better! Why am I never enough for you?
Okay class, why is this scene bad? If you answered atrocious writing, then you win the prize. The issue with this game is that it seems to have been written for an audience imagined too idiotic to read or write. The level of contemptuous, condescending dialogue in this game is genuinely impressive. Frankly, I'd actually kind of like it as a satire. Someone should really make a laugh track mod, it would be great.
Well, wasn't expecting to fight an ogre today. Then again, I also didn't expect to learn that my gods are rampaging around and trying to end the world. Just one of those days.
The point is that the core reason this non-binary scene sucks is that it would be poorly written for a kids' TV show. The whole thing comes across as teenagers' hastily written, unedited character insert. It's ham-fisted, childish, but the thing is, it's not really about the content. Let's look at another scene.
You two could still learn things together you'd never find out alone. Emmerich, you clearly find talking about dragons boring.
What? How? Who doesn't like dragons?
Aren't you curious why Tash likes them as much as you like necromancy?
The question crossed my mind.
And maybe Emmerich could help demystify magic, Tash.
Notice how this scene is equally crap. In the words of reviewer Skill Up,
see what I mean? That is not how you speak to adults. That is how you speak to a toddler when you are teaching them to share their Optimus Prime toy with their little brother.
Not only does this game patronize its own characters, but by extension the audience. It feels frankly embarrassing to have to listen to this drivel. But perhaps you still think woke is the core issue. So imagine this. A scene between a wise, elder white man and a pregnant woman with dyed hair. The older man patronizingly explains that it's evil to have a child outside of wedlock, and the young woman must settle down and become a traditional housewife in order to look after their child. Instead of having any semblance of an actual personality or indeed any sort of plan before this lecture, the young woman simply agrees and thanks the old man, vowing to change their behaviour now that they know better. The old man says, well, that's why the young should always listen to their elders. Is this scene good? No. It's completely terrible, for the same reasons. No personality or wit, or characters grounded in their world, or anything. It's an incredibly unsubtle attempt to lecture the audience, except this time with a message from a different part of the political spectrum. Woke isn't the problem, shit writing and content for the audience is. But perhaps you still need convincing, so let me say this. Dragon Age Origins released in 2009, and it's rightly being pointed out that the writing is vastly better in Veilguard's. It's got 2 non-heterosexual companions. Guess what? No one cares. Baldur's Gate 3 serves as a more recent example, a game that displays similar political stances with every romanceable character being open to relationships with literally any humanoid species, gender, orientation, whatever. There are even strong nods towards polyamory and swinging. I will say it's a bit much to be able to fuck a bear, but anyway. As a side note, I'm not actually the biggest fan of the romance system in Baldur's Gate 3, simply because it feels a bit absurd how literally every party member wants to bang you almost instantly. It feels like a dating sim. Thankfully, the romances themselves are pretty good, but being constantly hit on by my entire party feels frankly bizarre. I'd have preferred if love interests had taken longer to develop and only came from characters who had come to like you a lot more, or maybe 1 or 2 horny bastards, but some other are more slow burners. It feels like they're all lining up as sort of humanoid sex dolls in front of you, which cheapens the characters a little for me. Okay, back on topic. Neither the original Dragon Age nor Baldur's Gate 3 see the criticism that Veilguard does. Why is that? Well, the characters simply are what they are. They aren't gay or bi or trans specifically to be that thing. It's not their core defining identity. It's not condescendingly presented to the player as super duper important. It doesn't feel forced or fake. It's simply what they are, worth no more or less discussion than any other aspect of themselves, including their race, values, upbringing, etc. When it feels natural, it won't bother the vast majority of people. Terrible writing will, as well being talked down to, being treated like a child and having their hand held. This design philosophy is present not only in just the writing, but in dull, grindy, spongy, repetitive combat made to look flashy while asking as little from the player as possible, insultingly simple puzzles that are nothing more than a box-ticking waste of time, and unbearably constant cases of characters reiterating what we literally just did.
Artifact down.
Bunch of artifacts.
Artifacts, ancient artifacts. She was off looking for another artifact, and the artifact,
these artifacts.
Compare Fallout New Vegas to Fallout 4. Compare Mass Effect to Mass Effect Andromeda. Compare Game of Thrones to Game of Thrones Season 8, in all of which the weaker example will piss you off for the same reasons that Veilguard does. Crap writing ruins all. I should know, my videos barely get any views. So now that we've established the real problem, it's worth discussing the likely causes. One thing the anti-woke argument had going in its favour is simple things to blame. The culture wars infesting games and making them all bad. It's a pretty simple narrative. Does that have something to do with it? Well, I'll leave you to decide that once I explain where I think the core problem of the game stems from. Shitty corporate mismanagement. We've all had bosses that force their horrible changes into projects, then blame the staff when they don't work. This is not a sequel to the previous games, not really. The previous games created a dark world of intrigue, deception, and warring factions. Many of the series' most memorable moments are amongst the darkest, uncovering the truth behind the werewolves or the origin of the golems in Dragon Age Origins. Hawk's mother being killed by a deranged serial killer in Dragon Age 2. In Veilguard, nothing bad is actually allowed to happen, and if something looks like it might be something actually bad, say a companion being killed off by the antagonist a la Sephiroth and Aerith, they aren't, but are alive instead.
You're okay, but I saw Solus stab you. You fell.
Trust me, kid. I've had worse.
The game is Dragon Age Avengers, an unnecessary wiping of the game's previous identity as a dark fantasy series in order to have a Marvel-style quipathon where there's no real tension, no stakes, wit, or drama. It's an aggressive sanding down of anything resembling an original idea into a turgid mass of beige corporate goo produced only to serve what they view as the lowest common denominator, a game that they can get their pretty little heads around, to make sure that everyone gets it and no one ever feels they aren't doing a great job. An utterly worthless, designed by committee, box-ticking, soulless, gormless, cynical attempt at cash grab based on the appeal of a well-known franchise. We've never seen that before, right?
Somehow Palpatine returned.
The most insulting part is there seems to be a view that fans won't notice the butchering of a franchise they love. The absurd retcon of the Kunari race from a dogmatic, often judgmental, warlike people to abandoning the beliefs established by past games while changing the visual design from this to this is a perfect example of a simple truth. Amusingly, an appeal to supposed diversity actually serves to achieve the opposite result, where any idea of meaningfully different cultures, beliefs, or morality is reduced to the point where every character feels like the same lifeless husk, sprouting empty lines of robotic conversation and exposition. At no point do these characters feel like distinct personalities with backstories, trauma, hopes, or feelings. They feel like vacuous chatbots with all the personality and charm of Clippy. Actually, what am I saying? Somehow Clippy has infinitely more personality than them. You know what's sad? Developers will get fired for this, but the people who actually cause these problems will likely face very little consequence. They'll get their high salaries, absolve themselves of any blame, or worse, blame the audience. We've seen that before too. I don't know the ins and outs of who gets to influence what and how at BioWare. If the conversation the writers had with either executives or outside DEI firms goes something like,
"Fuck Indiana Jones, put a ticket in and make her name it gay!"
then I suppose you could attribute some amount of the problem to the political views at play here. I'd certainly argue that trying to crowbar in any particular political message, regardless of what that message may be, into a game in a way that doesn't actually fit the game narratively should not take precedence or development time away from trying to craft the true story of the game. If the current view in corporate boardrooms is that they simply must display a certain political alignment in order to avoid criticism, then it could be argued that that agenda is playing some role in the problem. However, let's be honest, you could remove this politics from the game and it would still be narratively awful for all the reasons we've already discussed. Also, it strikes me that if the aim was for game studios to capture a particular political audience for their games, why isn't there a studio that's the equivalent of Fox News? And for the love of God, don't say CDPR. A Fox News equivalent would not be caught dead with trans Claire from Cyberpunk or gay or bisexual Philippa or Ciri from The Witcher in their games. Now, I believe the corporate types are close enough to believe that this is how they should appeal to the broadest possible audience. Keep in mind, these people are not here for the art of it. These are the same people who make gambling sims barely disguised as buggy sports titles and grindathon live service games cynically designed to eke as much cash out of their player base as possible, which is oftentimes comprised of children. Do not mistake DEI compliance with a moral position. They're not here to be nice to everyone. These are the people denying review codes to critics, embargoing discussion of quests which they think might impact sales, and presumably behind the suspiciously similar wording that many of the major outlets have used in their reviews. They are here to try to milk every penny out of you, all the while showing no respect for you. We thought that AAA returning to making narrative-based single-player games would be a good thing, sadly forgetting that fundamental reality. Their aim is the money, and they'll do whatever they think they should do or whatever their advisor tell them they should do to get said money. BioWare is just another studio being sacrificed to the altar of woeful mismanagement that is plaguing the games industry. Mass layoffs, studios being acquired then shut down even when they've produced successful games, and crappy games shut out with no artistic merit whatsoever. This is the wider state of the AAA gaming industry. Until that reality changes, these companies will never, ever produce quality titles again. If you want proof of that, just ask fans of Madden or FIFA. And perhaps at some point, competent people will get their way into these boardrooms. Perhaps people who understand why games like Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, and Elden Ring have been such wild successes. It's because they were made, above all else, to be the best games they could possibly be, with a clear vision of what they were trying to achieve. If Dragon Age or Mass Effect ever truly want to have a return to form, this is what they must look to achieve. Incidentally, if I sound ill in this video, it's because I am, but we wanted to get the video out quickly, so I hope you enjoyed it.